The laughter cut through the Christmas night air like a blade through wrapping paper. I stood at my daughter-in-law's kitchen window, watching my rusted 1998 Ford F-150 sit alone in their pristine driveway like a vagrant at a country club. The truck's dented tailgate caught the glow from their motion sensor floodlights, the kind that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a month. Behind me, voices drifted from the living room where the family had gathered around Ashley's new 75-inch television, the one Marcus had surprised her with for Christmas. "Seriously, Dad, when are you getting rid of that eyesore?" Marcus's voice carried that particular tone he'd perfected since marrying Ashley, half exasperation, half embarrassment. "The neighbors probably think we're running some kind of charity case over here." I turned from the window, coffee mug warming my hands. Through the archway, I could see Marcus gesturing toward the front of the house with his wine glass. "Red wine? Probably something that cost more than my truck's monthly insurance." "It's just a truck, honey," Sarah said from the couch, her voice gentle but tired. My daughter understood, even if she didn't always defend me anymore. 28 years old and already learning to pick her battles? Just a truck? Ashley's laugh was sharp as ice cracking. "It's practically falling apart. What if my friends see it? What if the HOA says something?" I walked into the living room, boots silent, on their heated hardwood floors. The Christmas tree towered in the corner, a monument to excess with its perfectly coordinated silver and gold ornaments. Not a single handmade decoration from the grandkids. Those were probably stored in the garage, deemed too messy for company. "The truck runs fine," I said, settling into the leather recliner that Ashley always claimed was reserved for guests. "Gets me where I need to go." Marcus swirled his wine, not meeting my eyes. "Dad, you're 63. Years old, you've got to start thinking about your image." "What kind of message does that send?" "Image," I almost laughed. The irony sat heavy in my chest like heartburn. "Message to who?" I asked. "To everyone," Ashley jumped in, her voice climbing. "To the people at Sarah's work, to our friends, to the kids' teachers. People judge, Dad, whether we like it or not. They judge." Little Emma looked up from her new tablet, another surprise gift that probably cost more than most families' entire Christmas. "What's wrong with Grandpa's truck, Mommy?" "Nothing's wrong with it, sweetheart," I said before Ashley could answer. "It's just old? Like you, Grandpa?" The adults laughed. Even I smiled. Emma was 5 and honest in the way only children can be. "Exactly like me," I said. "Old, but still working." Marcus set down his wine glass with a clink. "Dad, I'm serious. Let me help you get something decent. I know a guy at the BMW dealership. You could lease something nice, reliable. Write it off as a business expense. Business expense, if he only knew." "The truck's reliable," I said. "Reliable?" Ashley's voice pitched higher. "Marcus told me you had to jump-start it at the grocery store last week. In front of the whole Whole Foods, I would have died of embarrassment." I remembered that day. The battery terminals were corroded and the truck wouldn't turn over after I'd loaded groceries. A young kid with tattooed arms and a kind smile had helped me with jumper cables. We'd talked about his job at a local auto shop while we waited for the engine to catch. Good kid, reminded me of myself at that age. "Sometimes things need a little help getting started," I said. "Doesn't mean they're broken." "But Dad," Sarah joined in, her voice careful, "Marcus has a point. Maybe it's time for an upgrade." "I worry about you driving that thing in winter. What if you break down somewhere?" The concern in her voice was real, and that made it harder. Sarah genuinely worried. Marcus and Ashley, just worried about appearances. "I've been driving longer than any of you have been alive," I said. "Think I can handle a little snow?" Ashley stood up abruptly, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "It's not about the snow, Dad. It's about standards, about showing the world you have some pride in yourself." Pride. The word hung in the air like smoke from a blown-out candle. I looked around the room, at the marble countertops visible through the kitchen doorway, at the custom built-ins filled with books nobody read, at the artwork that cost more than most people's cars. Everything perfect, everything for show. "You think driving an old truck means I don't have pride?" "I think it means you've given up," Marcus said quietly. "You're just dawdling, waiting to die." The words hit me in the chest like a physical blow. I set my coffee mug down on the side table, my hand steadier than I felt. "Maybe I should head home," I said, starting to stand. "Dad, don't," Sarah said quickly. Marcus didn't mean, yes, he did. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become this person? When had my boy turned into someone who measured a man's worth by the shine on his paint job? Ashley crossed her arms. "Look, we're not trying to hurt your feelings, we're trying to help. You could afford something nice if you wanted to. You're not poor," if only she knew how not poor I was. "The truck has sentimental value," I said. Marcus groaned. "Everything has sentimental value to your generation. Sometimes you have to let go of the past and move forward." I thought about the day I'd bought that truck. Cash down at a small lot in Detroit, just 3 months after Ellen died. The salesman had tried to upsell me to something newer, shinier. But I'd seen that beat-up Ford sitting in the back row and known it was mine. Ellen would have understood. She always understood. "Some things are worth keeping," I said. "What?" Ashley challenged. "What's so special about a rusty old truck?" I could have told them. Could have explained about the morning Ellen collapsed in our kitchen, how I'd driven 90 miles an hour to the hospital with that truck's engine screaming, how I'd sat in the hospital parking lot for 6 hours after she died, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, how driving it now felt like carrying a piece of her with me. Instead, I just said, "It reminds me of your mother." The room went quiet. Even Ashley looked uncomfortable. "Dad," Marcus said, his voice softer now, "Mom wouldn't want you clinging to the past. She'd want you to be happy." Happy, another word that felt foreign in this house. "I am happy," I lied. Marcus exchanged a look with Ashley. One of those married couple communications that happened without words. "We just want what's best for you," Ashley said, her tone gentler now but still patronizing. "You deserve better than that old thing." I walked to the window again, looking out at my truck. Tomorrow morning, I'd drive it home to my modest house with its small mortgage and practical furniture. I'd sit in my kitchen and drink coffee from a plain white mug, not from bone china with hand-painted roses. And tomorrow morning, everything would change. But tonight, I was just the old man with the embarrassing truck and too much sentimental attachment to the past. "Maybe you're right," I said finally, not turning around. "Maybe it is time for a change." I woke at 5:30 the next morning, same as I had every day for the past 40 years. The habit stuck even though I didn't need to punch a time clock anymore. Outside my bedroom window, snow had started falling sometime during the night, dusting the world in white like powdered sugar on a cake. The house felt too quiet without Ellen's breathing beside me. 7 years, and I still reached for her coffee mug when I stumbled to the kitchen. Still made 2 pieces of toast out of muscle memory. My phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. Text message from Marcus. "Dad, thought about our talk last night. Ashley found a great lease deal on a 2024 Honda. Clean, reliable, good on gas. Want me to set up an appointment?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. The truck started on the second try, engine coughing like an old man clearing his throat. I let it warm up while I scraped ice from the windshield with a credit card. The scraper had broken 2 winters ago, and I'd never bothered replacing it. Marcus would probably add that to his list of evidence that I'd given up on life. The drive to the office took 20 minutes through empty streets. Most businesses stayed closed the day after Christmas, but I had work to do. Work that Marcus and Ashley knew nothing about. Randolph Industrial Supply sat in a gray concrete building between a tire shop and a Mexican restaurant that made the best carnitas in the city. The sign out front needed painting, and the parking lot had more potholes than asphalt. I'd bought the building in 1987 for $43,000, paying it off in 8 years. Ellen had called it an eyesore, but she'd said it with love in her voice. I parked in my usual spot by the loading dock and walked through the back entrance. The building smelled like motor oil and metal shavings, scents that had become as familiar as my own aftershave. Fluorescent lights flickered to life as I flipped switches, revealing rows of industrial shelving stocked with bearings, gaskets, hydraulic fittings, and 10,000 other parts that kept America's factories running. My office sat in the back corner, a glass-walled box that let me watch the warehouse floor. The desk was the same metal one I'd bought used in 1981, dented, scratched, but solid as a tank. Ellen's picture sat next to my computer monitor, the colors faded but her smile still bright. I pulled up yesterday's orders on the screen. $17,000 in bearing assemblies for a food processing plant in Michigan. $8,000 in hydraulic components for a wind farm in Iowa. $42,000 in specialized gaskets for an oil refinery in Texas. Normal day, normal numbers. The phone rang at 7:15. Randolph Industrial, Tom speaking. Mr. Randolph? This is David Chun from Channel 12 News. I'm calling about the donation. I leaned back in my chair, springs creaking. What donation? The $3 million donation to the Children's Hospital. Anonymous donor, but our sources traced the check back to your company? We'd like to do a story. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. Randolph Industrial. Mr. Randolph, this is Jennifer Martinez from the Tribune. We're running a story about yesterday's massive donation to Children's Hospital of Detroit. Hospital administration confirmed the donor wished to remain anonymous, but public records show. I hung up again and unplugged the phone. My chest felt tight. How had they found out so fast? The donation was supposed to be anonymous, handled through my lawyer with instructions to keep my name out of everything. The hospital could announce the gift, but not the source. I walked to the small refrigerator in the corner and pulled out a bottle of water. My hands were shaking slightly. Through the office window, I could see snow accumulating on the warehouse floor where the roof leaked. $3 million. The number still felt surreal, even though I'd written the check myself. I'd started with nothing in 1976. Working out of my garage with a pickup truck and $1,000 Ellen had saved from her job at the bank. Industrial Supply wasn't glamorous work-matching factories with the parts they needed, maintaining inventory, building relationships with suppliers and customers. But it was steady work, honest work, and I was good at it. The business grew slowly at first. One customer led to another. Word spread that Tom Randolph delivered on time and stood behind his products. Ellen handled the books in the early years, working late into the night at our kitchen table while I made sales calls and deliveries. By 1985, we'd moved into our first real building. By 1995, we were supplying parts to half the manufacturing plants in the state. By 2005, we'd expanded into 4 states with a network of distributors and a reputation for reliability. Ellen died in 2018, just 3 months before our biggest contract came through, a 5-year deal with General Motors worth $2.7 million annually. I'd signed the papers sitting in the hospital waiting room while she was in surgery for the stroke that would take her. The money accumulated after that, more than I knew what to do with, more than I needed. I lived in the same house, drove the same truck, shopped at the same grocery store. The business ran itself now with a staff of 12 people who'd been with me for years. So, when I'd seen the story about the Children's Hospital's fundraising campaign falling short, when I'd read about kids who couldn't get the treatment they needed because of budget cuts, the decision felt obvious. $3 million. Enough to fund the new pediatric cancer wing they'd been dreaming about for years. My lawyer had assured me the donation could remain anonymous. Hospital board members might know, but they'd signed confidentiality agreements. The public would never know where the money came from. Apparently, my lawyer had been wrong. I plugged the phone back, and it rang immediately. Tom? The voice belonged to Margaret Walsh, my accountant for the past 15 years. The phones at my office are going crazy. Reporters calling about some donation. What's going on? Someone leaked it. I said, leaked what? I told her about the Children's Hospital gift. Margaret went quiet for a long moment. $3 million, Tom? You didn't discuss this with me. It's my money. Of course it is. But Tom, this is going to change things. The publicity, the tension. You sure you're ready for that? I wasn't sure of anything anymore. Last night, my son had called me an embarrassment. This morning, reporters were calling me a hero. Neither felt right. How long before it's public? I asked. If reporters are already calling, it'll be on the news today. Probably the morning shows first, then spread from there. I thought about Marcus and Ashley, probably still sleeping in their perfect house. Thought about Sarah, getting ready for work. None of them knew what I'd done. None of them knew what I was capable of. Margaret, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Call my son. Tell him to turn on the news this morning. Tell him his old man made the headlines. I could hear Margaret smiling through the phone. This is going to be interesting. After I hung up, I sat in my office watching snow fall outside the window. In a few hours, my face would be on television screens across the state. The story would spread. Small business owner makes massive anonymous donation, local hero, rags to riches success story. Marcus would see it. Ashley would see it. All their friends would see it. The old man with the embarrassing truck and too much sentimental attachment to the past had just become the biggest news story of the week. I picked up Ellen's picture and traced her smile with my finger. Think they'll understand now? I asked her, but I already knew the answer. Some people measured worth by appearances. Others measured it by actions. The phone started ringing again. The first news van pulled into my parking lot at 8:47. I watched from my office window as a blonde reporter in a red coat stepped out, followed by a cameraman shouldering equipment that probably cost more than most people's cars. They set up on the sidewalk in front of my building, the reporter practicing her lines while snow collected on her shoulders. By 9:15, there were 3 vans. My cell phone had been buzzing constantly for the past hour, unknown numbers mostly, but a few I recognized. Margaret had called twice with updates from reporters who'd contacted her office. My insurance agent called to congratulate me. Even Father Rodriguez from St. Mary's called, though I hadn't been to Mass since Ellen's funeral. The call I was waiting for came at 9:23. "Dad?" Sarah's voice was breathless, like she'd been running. "Dad, are you okay?" "I just saw the news and I'm fine, sweetheart. $3 million? Dad, how?" I knew the business was doing well, but $3 million? I could hear traffic in the background. She was probably driving to work, calling from her hands-free system in the Honda we'd helped her buy 2 years ago. "The business has been good to me," I said. "Good to you?" "Dad, this is this is incredible." The reporter said it was anonymous, but they figured out it came from Randolph Industrial. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you didn't ask," I thought. "Because your brother thinks I'm a charity case driving an embarrassing truck. Because your sister-in-law measures people by their marble countertops and heated floors." "Didn't seem important," I said instead. "Not important?" "Dad, you just saved a children's hospital. Kids are going to live because of what you did. How is that not important?" Through the window, I watched the blonde reporter talking to her cameraman. They were probably planning their approach, figuring out how to get past the locked front door. "Have you talked to Marcus?" I asked. Sarah went quiet for a moment. "He called me about 20 minutes ago. He's pretty shaken up." "Shaken up," I almost smiled. "Is Ashley shaken up too?" "Dad, don't. They feel terrible about last night." "Marcus is driving over there now to talk to you?" I checked my watch, 9:25. If Marcus had left their house 20 minutes ago, he'd be here soon. The drive from their subdivision to my warehouse took exactly 18 minutes. I'd timed it dozens of times over the years, picking up grandkids for visits or dropping off birthday presents. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did you know?" "About the business. Did you have any idea how well it was doing?" Another pause. I guess I never really thought about it." "You never talked about money and you always lived so simply? The truck, the house, the way you dress?" I just assumed, double quotes, "you assumed I was getting by. I'm sorry, Dad, we all did." The front door buzzer rang. I could see a man in a suit standing outside, probably another reporter. "Sarah, I need to go. Media's showing up. Do you want me to come over?" "I can take the day off work." "No need. I can handle a few reporters." "Dad?" Her voice was soft. "I'm proud of you. I always have been. But this is amazing." After she hung up, I sat looking at my phone. 3 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. 2 voicemails, probably more reporters. The buzzer rang again, longer. This time, I ignored it. At 9:41, Marcus's BMW pulled into the parking lot. I watched him park next to my truck, the contrast almost comical, his sleek silver sedan next to my dented Ford. He sat in his car for a moment, staring at my building like he'd never seen it before. Maybe he hadn't, really. Marcus had visited the warehouse exactly 3 times in his adult life. Once for a high school career day presentation when he was 17. Once to borrow my ladder when he was 25. Once last year when he'd needed boxes for Ashley's sister's move. Each time he'd acted like the place was beneath him. Industrial Supply wasn't sexy like his job in financial planning. It didn't come with corner offices or client dinners at expensive restaurants. The back door opened and Marcus walked in. His usually perfect hair was disheveled and his expensive coat was dusted with snow. He looked around the warehouse like he was seeing it for the first time. "Dad? Back here." I called from my office. He walked through the warehouse slowly, taking in the inventory shelves, the forklift, the organized chaos of a working business. When he reached my office, he stopped in the doorway. "Jesus, Dad, how long has it been like this?" "What?" He gestured around the warehouse. "Big, successful." I leaned back in my chair. "Define successful." Marcus stepped into my office, his expensive shoes clicking on the concrete floor. The news said $3 million in one donation. "Dad, what's the business actually worth?" "Why?" "Because I'm your son, and I apparently don't know anything about my own father." Fair point. I pulled up a file on my computer, turned the monitor so he could see it. Financial summary for Randolph Industrial Supply, fiscal year 2024. Marcus stared at the screen. His face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, something that might have been shame. $15 million in revenue, he read slowly. Net profit of $4.2 million. He looked at me. "Dad, you single quotes double quote? I'm what?" "You're rich." Like actually wealthy. I thought about his house with its marble countertops and heated floors. About Ashley's 75-inch television and Marcus's wine collection. About their country club membership and private school tuition for the kids. "Depends how you define wealthy," I said. Marcus slumped into the folding chair across from my desk. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Tell you what?" "That you were successful? That the business was doing this well? That you could afford ... He gestured helplessly. "That you could afford anything you wanted?" "I can afford anything I want," I said. "I wanted that truck. But why? Dad, you could drive anything? You could live anywhere. You could..." "I could what?" "Buy a bigger house I don't need? Get a fancier car to impress people I don't care about?" I leaned forward. "Marcus, I've got everything I want. Everything you want is an old truck and a modest house. Everything I want is knowing that when I die, I made a difference. That truck has been with me through the best and worst days of my life. This building," I gestured around us, "gave me a way to support my family and build something lasting. Yesterday I was able to help kids I'll never meet because of what we built here." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at Ellen's picture on my desk. "Last night," he said finally, "Ashley and I were making fun of you. We were laughing about your truck, talking about how embarrassing it was. And the whole time, you could have bought our entire house without blinking." "Yes. Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you defend yourself?" I thought about that moment at his kitchen window, watching my truck sit alone in their driveway like an unwelcome guest. Because defending myself would have meant explaining myself. And I shouldn't have to explain who I am to my own son. The words hung in the air between us. Outside I could hear voices, more reporters probably, or maybe curious neighbors from the tire shop next door. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and winced. "Ashley?" I asked. "She's getting calls from her friends. Apparently the story's gone viral. Anonymous millionaire saves children's hospital. Her book club is going crazy trying to figure out if she knows you." "Does she?" Marcus looked up at me, and for a moment I saw the boy he used to be, uncertain, searching for approval. "I don't think any of us knew." "You," he said quietly. My office phone started ringing again. I let it go to voicemail, but the sound seemed to snap Marcus out of whatever trance he'd fallen into. He stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the warehouse floor. There are more vans out there, he said. Dad, this is getting crazy. I joined him at the window. 5 news vans, now maybe 6. Reporters stood in clusters on the sidewalk, breath steaming in the cold air. One crew was interviewing Raymond from the tire shop next door, probably asking if he knew anything about the mysterious millionaire. Raymond's going to love this, I said. Free advertising for his business. Marcus turned to look at me. How can you be so calm about this? What's the alternative? Panic? Most people would be, I don't know, overwhelmed. This is huge, Dad. National news huge. I thought about that. $3 million was a lot of money, even to someone who had it, but overwhelming? No, what was overwhelming was sitting in a hospital waiting room while your wife died. What was overwhelming was raising 2 kids alone while building a business from nothing. This was just Tuesday. I've handled bigger problems, I said. Marcus's phone buzzed again. This time he answered it. Ashley, slow down. I can't understand. What? No, I'm at his office now. Yes, he's really my father. No, I had no idea. He'd hear Ashley's voice through the phone, high-pitched and rapid. The words weren't clear, but the tone was. Unmistakable excitement mixed with something that sounded like panic. Marcus covered the phone with his hand. She wants to come down here, bring the kids. Says this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to our family. Tell her the parking lot's full of reporters. Ashley, there are news crews everywhere. I know, Doc. Just stay home for now, okay? Let me figure out what's going on first. He hung up and immediately started typing a text message. Damage control? I asked. Social media. Ashley's already posted something on Facebook about being proud of her father-in-law. She's getting hundreds of comments. Father-in-law. Yesterday, I was an embarrassment. Today, I was something to brag about on social media. What did she post exactly? Marcus held up his phone. I read Ashley's post. So proud of my father-in-law Tom Randolph for his incredible generosity. Some people truly understand what Christmas is about. Hashtag blessed #family #hero double quotes. Below it were dozens of comments, heart emojis, and congratulations and questions about whether Ashley could introduce people to me. Several comments asking if I was single. 67 likes already, Marcus said. And counting. Yesterday she wanted me to get rid of my truck. Marcus put his phone away. Dad, about last night? Don't. I need to say this. We were wrong. I was wrong. The things we said about you, about the truck, about your life. We had no idea. I walked back to my desk and sat down. Through the office window, I could see one of the reporters trying to peer through the warehouse windows. Marcus, let me ask you something. If those reporters weren't out there, if this donation hadn't made the news, would you still be here apologizing? He was quiet for a moment. Yes, I think so. You think so? I know so. His voice was firmer now. Dad, seeing this place, understanding what you've built, what you've accomplished, it changes things. What things? Everything. The way I see you. The way I've been treating you. I picked up a bearing catalog from my desk, thumbed through it absently. Standard industrial parts, nothing glamorous, nothing that would impress Ashley's book club. But these parts kept factories running, kept people employed, kept the economy moving. Marcus, do you know what I do here? Do you actually understand the business? He shifted uncomfortably. You supply parts to factories. I solve problems, I corrected. When a production line goes down because they need a specific bearing or gasket or hydraulic fitting, they call me. Sometimes it's 2 a.m. Sometimes it's Christmas Day, and I find what they need, wherever it is, however much it costs, because every hour that line is down costs them thousands of dollars and puts people's jobs at risk. I set down the catalog and looked at him. Last month, a food processing plant in Ohio called me on a Sunday. Their main conveyor system had failed, and they had a contract to deliver frozen meals to school districts across 3 states. Without that part, kids weren't going to get lunch. I drove 4 hours to Cleveland with the bearing they needed. Made the delivery personally. Marcus was listening now, really listening. That's what success looks like to me, I continued. Not the money, though the money's nice. The knowledge that what I do matters. That I solve real problems for real people. I never understood that, Marcus said quietly. No, you didn't? You saw an old man in an old truck running an unglamorous business? You were embarrassed by me because I didn't fit your image of success. The office phone rang again. This time I answered it. Randolph Industrial. Mr. Randolph, this is Susan Miller from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show tomorrow to talk about your incredible generosity. I hung up. Marcus stared at me. You just hung up on Good Morning America. They'll call back. Dad, this is huge. This could be amazing publicity for the business. The business doesn't need publicity. We're already booked solid through next spring. My cell phone started buzzing. Text message from Sarah. Dad, Channel 7 just showed a picture of you and Mom from 2015. The reporter called you a humble millionaire who prefers anonymity to acclaim. I'm crying at my desk. I showed the message to Marcus. He read it and shook his head. A picture of you and Mom? How did they get that? Probably from the hospital. Fundraiser 3 years ago. Ellen made me wear a tux to that thing. I hated every minute of it. But you went. For her. She believed in supporting the community. Marcus was quiet again, processing. Outside, I could see more people gathering, not just reporters now, but curious onlookers. Word was spreading through the neighborhood. Dad, what happens now? Now? With all this attention? With the media? With us? That was the real question, wasn't it? Yesterday, my relationship with Marcus and Ashley was strained but predictable. I was the slightly embarrassing father-in-law they tolerated out of obligation. Today, everything had changed. That depends, I said. On whether you learned something from this or whether you just learned that I have money. Marcus met my eyes. What do you mean? Are you here because you understand me better or because you found out I'm worth more than you thought? The question hung between us like a challenge. Outside, a new news van was pulling into the parking lot Channel 4 this time, with their satellite dish extended. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it and grimaced. Ashley wants to know if we should cancel our New Year's plans at the country club. She thinks we should have a family celebration instead. To honor Dad's achievement. Honor my achievement. Her words. I thought about that country club with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Thought about Ashley parading me around like a trophy, introducing me to her friends as the father-in-law who'd made national news. Tell Ashley the country club sounds perfect, I said. Marcus looked surprised. Really? Really, I'd love to meet her friends. All of them. Something in my tone made Marcus pause. He was starting to understand that his old man might be more complicated than he'd ever realized. The phone started ringing again, and this time I didn't bother answering it. By 11:30, the parking lot looked like a media convention. News crews from 3 states had arrived, along with what looked like half the neighborhood. Mrs. Chun, from the Chinese restaurant, had set up a folding table and was selling coffee and donuts to reporters. Smart woman, she was probably making more money today than she had all week. I watched the circus from my office window while Marcus fielded phone calls. He'd become my unofficial spokesperson, though I hadn't asked for one. Every few minutes, his phone would ring with another interview request, another angle someone wanted to pursue. Dad, that was NPR, he said, hanging up. They want to do a story about the hidden wealthy and working-class communities. And someone from Forbes called about including you in their philanthropist roundup. Tell them I'm not hidden. I'm right here. You know what I mean? I did know what he meant, and that was the problem. Everyone wanted to make me into something I wasn't, either a rags-to-riches inspiration story or a humble millionaire hiding in plain sight. The truth was simpler and less marketable. I was a guy who'd built a good business and decided to help some kids. A black Escalade pulled into the parking lot, weaving between news vans like it owned the place. I recognized the vehicle immediately. Ashley's here, I said. Marcus looked out the window and winced. She brought the kids. Through the tinted windows I could see little Emma's face pressed against the glass, staring wide-eyed at all the cameras. Ashley was in the driver's seat, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror. She's not planning to walk past those reporters, is she? I asked. Marcus was already dialing his phone. Ashley, don't get out of the car yet. What do you mean? Ready for what? No, absolutely not. Ashley, listen to me. But Ashley had already hung up. I watched her step out of the Escalade like she was arriving at a red carpet premiere. She'd changed clothes since last night. Gone was the casual Christmas outfit, replaced by a tailored coat that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair was perfect, her makeup fresh. The reporters noticed her immediately. Mrs. Randolph? One of them called out, cameras swiveling in her direction. Can you tell us about your father-in-law's donation? Ashley smiled, the same smile she used for her social media posts, and walked toward the cameras like she'd been doing interviews her whole life. What the hell is she doing? Marcus muttered. I had a pretty good idea what she was doing. Ashley had spent 7 years trying to distance herself from what she saw as my working-class embarrassment. Now that I'd become newsworthy, I was suddenly worth claiming. She's taking her moment, I said. Through the window, I could see Ashley talking animatedly to the reporters, gesturing toward my building. Emma and 6-year-old Tyler had gotten out of the car and were standing beside her, looking confused but excited by all the attention. My office phone rang. Marcus started to reach for it, but I waved him off. Randolph Industrial. Tom, it's David Walsh. My lawyer's voice was tight with stress. Have you seen the news? I'm living the news, David. This is getting out of hand. I've got reporters calling my office, trying to get details about the donation structure, asking about your other charitable giving. Someone's digging into your finances. I watched Ashley pointing toward my office window while talking to a reporter with perfectly styled hair and teeth too white to be natural. Let them dig, I said. Nothing to hide? Tom, you need to think about this carefully. Once this level of attention starts, it doesn't stop. People are going to want things from you. Charities, investment opportunities, family members looking for handouts. Your life is about to change. David, I'm 63 years old. I've been through a lot worse than some reporters and opportunists. This is different. This is the kind of money that brings out the worst in people. I thought about that while Ashley continued her impromptu press conference outside. She was holding Emma's hand now, probably spinning some story about what a wonderful grandfather I was. How the family had always known I had a generous heart. David, I've been dealing with people who want things from me my entire adult life. Suppliers who want better payment terms, customers who want lower prices, employees who want raises. The only difference now is the scale. The scale matters, Tom. Does it? Yesterday, Ashley was embarrassed by my truck. Today, she's giving interviews about what a hero I am. The money didn't change me, it revealed everyone else. After I hung up, Marcus was staring at me with something that might have been admiration. You really don't care about any of this, do you? Should I? Most people would be freaking out. The attention, the pressure, the way this changes everything, I pulled Ellen's picture closer on my desk. Marcus, the day your mother died, I learned something important about what matters and what doesn't. I gestured toward the window. This is noise. What matters is whether you can sleep at night knowing you did right by the people who depend on you. Outside, Ashley was posing for photos with the kids. A reporter was crouched down asking Emma questions. My granddaughter was beaming, clearly enjoying her moment in the spotlight. Ashley's really going for it, Marcus said. She is. Does that bother you? I considered the question. Did it bother me that my daughter-in-law was using my donation as a platform for her own attention? That she was rewriting our relationship for the cameras? What bothers me, I said finally, is that she thinks this changes anything between us. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. He read it and shook his head. What now? Sarah, she's trying to get through the parking lot, but the reporters won't let her pass. They want to interview her too. Through the window, I could see Sarah's Honda parked at the street, blocked by news vans. She was standing next to her car, looking overwhelmed by the chaos. Go get her, I said. Bring her in through the back. While Marcus went to rescue his sister, I watched Ashley continue her performance outside. She was good at it, knew how to angle herself for the cameras, when to smile, when to look serious. She'd probably dreamed about this kind of attention her whole life. My cell phone rang. The caller ID showed a local number I didn't recognize. Hello, Mr. Randolph? This is Dr. Patricia Hernandez from Children's Hospital. I hope you don't mind me calling directly, but I wanted to thank you personally for your incredible gift. I sat up straighter. Dr. Hernandez, how did you get this number? Your lawyer provided it. Mr. Randolph, I can't tell you what this donation means to us, to the families we serve. We've been fighting for funding for that. Pediatric wing for 3 years, your gift. It's going to save lives. This was why I'd made the donation. Not for the news coverage or the attention, but for this knowing that kids would get treatment they couldn't have received otherwise. That's all I wanted, I said. Would you consider visiting the hospital? Meeting some of the families who will benefit from your generosity? I know you wanted to remain anonymous, but the anonymous part didn't work out so well. Dr. Hernandez laughed. No, it didn't, but maybe that's for the best. People need to see that there are still individuals willing to make sacrifices for others. Sacrifices. I thought about that word. $3 million was a lot of money, but it wasn't a sacrifice for me. It was excess, surplus, money I'd never need. The real sacrifice would be sitting through Ashley's country club celebration, pretending that her newfound pride in me was genuine. Dr. Hernandez, let me think about the visit. Of course. And Mr. Randolph, thank you. From all of us, after she hung up, I sat in my office listening to the muffled voices outside. Through the back door, I could hear Marcus and Sarah talking as they made their way through the warehouse. In a few minutes, Sarah would walk into my office with tears in her eyes, proud and amazed by what her father had accomplished. Ashley would eventually come inside, full of excitement about the media attention and probably already planning how to leverage it for her own social standing. And I'd have to figure out how to navigate this new reality where my private act of generosity had become public spectacle, where my complicated family relationships were about to be tested by money and attention in ways none of us were prepared for. The warehouse door opened and Sarah's voice echoed across the concrete floor. Dad, where are you? Back here, sweetheart. It was going to be a very long day. Sarah walked into my office like she was entering a church, quiet, reverent, her eyes taking in everything with new understanding. She'd been crying. I could tell from the slight redness around her eyes, though she'd tried to hide it with makeup. Dad! She crossed the room and hugged me, something she hadn't done since Ellen's funeral. I'm so proud of you I can barely breathe. It's just money. Sweetheart. She pulled back and looked at me with Ellen's eyes, the same deep brown, the same ability to see straight through my deflections. No, it's not just money. It's who you are. It's who you've always been, and we were too blind to see it. Marcus nodded from the doorway. Sarah's right. Dad, I owe you an apology that goes way deeper than last night. You don't owe me anything. I owe you respect, understanding. I owe you the benefit of the doubt I should have given you years ago. Before I could respond, the back door slammed open with enough force to rattle the warehouse windows. Ashley's heels clicked across the concrete floor like gunshots, each step sharp with purpose. Tom! Her voice carried across the warehouse, amplified by excitement and adrenaline. Tom, you are not going to believe what just happened out there. She burst into my office like a hurricane in designer clothing, her cheeks flushed with cold and exhilaration. Emma and Tyler trailed behind her, wide-eyed and overwhelmed by the morning's chaos. The Channel 12 reporter wants to do a follow-up piece, Ashley announced, pulling out her phone. About the family behind the donation. She said our story could inspire others to give back to their communities. Our story? Sarah's voice was carefully neutral. The family's story, Ashley corrected, though her eyes never left her phone screen. I've already gotten friend requests from 2 local news anchors. And look at this, she turned her phone toward us. My Facebook post has over 300 shares. I watched my granddaughter Emma standing in the corner, still wearing her pajamas under her winter coat. She looked tired and confused, probably wondering why she'd been dragged away from her Christmas toys to stand in a warehouse while strangers pointed cameras at her. Ashley, I said quietly, maybe the kids should go home. Are you kidding? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Emma was so cute on camera. Tell Grandpa what you said to the reporter, sweetie. Emma looked at me with uncertain eyes. I said you were the best grandpa in the world. That's my girl. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out 2 candy canes I'd been saving since Christmas Eve. You and Tyler want to explore the warehouse? There's a forklift over there that looks like a big yellow robot. The kids perked up immediately, and Marcus offered to supervise their exploration. As they left, Ashley was already back to her phone, typing furiously. Ashley, Sarah said, can we talk for a minute about how we're handling this? Handling what? Sarah, this is amazing. Do you know how many people are talking about Dad right now? The story's already been picked up by CNN. That's exactly what I'm worried about. Ashley looked up from her phone, finally giving Sarah her full attention. Worried about what? About turning Dad into a circus act. About exploiting his generosity for attention. I'm not exploiting anything. I'm celebrating him. We should all be celebrating him. Were you celebrating him last night? The question came out sharper than Sarah had probably intended. Ashley's expression shifted, defensiveness replacing excitement. Last night was different. How? We didn't know. We didn't know he had money, Sarah finished. That's the only thing that changed. I watched this exchange like a tennis match, saying nothing. Ashley and Sarah had always had a complicated relationship, polite but distant oil and water trying to coexist for the sake of family harmony. Sarah, you're being unfair, Ashley said. Yes, we were wrong about the truck thing. But this donation shows who Dad really is, and I want people to know that. People or your book club? What is that supposed to mean? Sarah took a breath, clearly trying to control her temper. It means yesterday you were embarrassed by Dad's truck, and today you're posing for pictures with your kids, talking about what an inspiration he is. It means you're treating his generosity like it's your own personal press opportunity. Ashley's cheeks flushed deeper. I have never been embarrassed by Tom. The lie hung in the air between them like smoke. I could see Sarah weighing whether to call her on it directly. My office phone rang, breaking the tension. I let it go to voicemail, but Ashley pounced on the distraction. That's probably another interview request. Tom, we need to be strategic about this. The right interviews could really help your business. The business doesn't need help, but think about the exposure. Think about what this could do for your reputation. My reputation with. Who? Ashley gestured vaguely toward the window. Everyone, the community. Your industry peers? Ashley, I said carefully, my industry peers have known my reputation for 40 years. They don't need CNN to tell them whether I'm reliable. But this is bigger than business. This is about legacy. Another word that felt foreign in my mouth. What kind of legacy do you think I should have? I asked. The kind that matters. The kind that makes a difference. I thought about the phone call with Dr. Hernandez, about kids who would receive treatment because of money that had been sitting in my bank account, earning interest I didn't need. Ashley, the legacy that matters already happened. It happened the moment the check cleared, but if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And they might get it wrong. Sarah made a sound that was almost a laugh. You got it wrong for 7 years? Sarah, stop. Ashley's voice was rising. I'm trying to help here. Help who? Dad or your social media following? That's enough, I said quietly, but my voice carried enough authority to stop both women mid-argument. In the sudden silence, I could hear Marcus talking to the kids out in the warehouse, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Through the window, I could see the media circus continuing, outside reporters interviewing anyone willing to talk, cameras capturing every angle of my modest building. Girls, I said, let me ask you both something. What did you think of me yesterday morning? Sarah answered first. I thought you were a good man who'd had some hard luck. I worried about you being alone, about whether you had enough money saved for retirement. And you, Ashley? Ashley shifted uncomfortably. I thought you were stuck in the past, living too small, not reaching your potential. And today I think I was wrong about everything. Were you wrong about everything, or were you just wrong about how much money I had? The question hung between us like a challenge. Ashley opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. My cell phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and felt my stomach drop. The message was from a number I hadn't seen in 15 years. Tom, saw the news. We need to talk. Janet, Ellen's sister. The one who'd contested Ellen's will, who'd accused me of manipulating a dying woman, who tried to claim half the business belonged to Ellen's estate. The sister we'd banned from the funeral because she'd shown up drunk and made a scene at the viewing. Sarah noticed my expression. Dad? What's wrong? I showed her the phone. Her face went pale. Oh no, who's Janet? Ashley asked, reading over Sarah's shoulder. Trouble, Sarah said quietly. What kind of trouble? I thought about Janet Walsh, Ellen's bitter, alcoholic sister who'd spent our entire marriage resenting Ellen's happiness and my success. Janet, who'd always believed Ellen had married beneath herself. Janet, who'd seen every dollar I'd earned as money stolen from her sister's legacy. If Janet had seen the news, if she knew about the donation and what it implied about my wealth, she'd be on the first plane from Phoenix, and she'd be coming with lawyers. The kind of trouble that makes reporters look like a blessing, I said. Ashley's phone started ringing. She glanced at the display and her eyes lit up. It's Channel 7. They want to do a live interview. Don't answer it, Sarah said. Are you crazy? This is Channel 7. Ashley, listen to me. We need to slow this down, all of this. Sarah gestured toward the chaos outside. Before it gets completely out of control. But Ashley was already answering the phone, her media voice bright and eager. Hello, this is Ashley Randolph ... looked at Sarah, who was staring at Janet's text message with the expression of someone watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. Outside, the circus continued. Inside, my family was fracturing along lines I should have seen coming. And somewhere in Phoenix, Ellen's sister was probably already packing her bags. The day was about to get much more complicated. The Phoenix flight landed at Detroit Metro at 3:47 p.m. I knew because I'd been tracking it online for the past 2 hours. The same way I used to track storms when I was young and needed to know exactly when to bring the cattle in from the pasture. Janet Walsh arrived like a storm too sudden, destructive, and impossible to ignore. I was still in my office when Marcus burst through the door without knocking, his face pale and his expensive coat disheveled. Dad, there's a woman outside demanding to see you. She's yelling at the reporters, claiming they got the story wrong. Says she's Ellen's sister. I saved the file I'd been working on and closed my laptop. Through the window, I could see Janet standing in the middle of the media circus, her gray hair wild from the wind and 15 years of hard living. She was pointing at my building and talking rapidly to anyone with a camera, her voice carrying even through the glass. What's she saying? Sarah asked from the corner where she'd been hiding from Ashley's ongoing interview marathon. Marcus pulled out his phone and turned up the volume on a live news stream. Janet's voice filled my office, sharp with righteous anger and what sounded like 3 drinks at the airport bar. Tom Randolph fooled everyone, including my sister. Ellen never knew how much money he was making. He hid it from her, made her live like a pauper while he stockpiled millions. That donation, that's blood money. Money that should have gone to Ellen's family when she died. The reporter pressed the microphone closer. Are you saying Mr. Randolph was dishonest about his finances? I'm saying my sister died thinking they were struggling to get by. She clipped coupons and shopped at thrift stores while he was sitting on a fortune. Ellen could have had anything she wanted, gone anywhere she dreamed of, but he kept her in the dark about their real situation. Sarah made a small sound of distress. Dad, that's not true, is it? I thought about Ellen in our last years together, how she'd refused the European vacation I'd suggested, claiming we couldn't afford it. How she'd insisted on buying generic groceries and mending clothes that should have been replaced. How she'd worried about leaving me with too much debt when she was dying. Your mother knew what she needed to know, I said quietly. That's not an answer, Marcus said. It's the only answer I'm giving. Janet was still talking to the reporters, her story getting bigger and more dramatic with each retelling. According to her latest version, I'd been systematically deceiving Ellen for decades, hiding money while forcing her to live in poverty. Dad, Sarah said carefully, why didn't you tell Mom about the business growing so large? I looked at Ellen's picture on my desk, at her smile that had gotten brighter every year even. As her body grew weaker, Because your mother didn't measure happiness in dollars, I said. She was content with what we had. Why would I burden her with worrying about money she didn't need? Burden her? Marcus's voice was sharp. Dad, she could have enjoyed that money. Traveled, bought nice things, lived a little. She did live. We traveled, took that cruise to Alaska for our 30th anniversary, spent 2 weeks in Ireland the year before she got sick. She bought nice things when she wanted them. Your mother chose how she wanted to live, and I respected that choice. Ashley appeared in the doorway, breathless and flushed with excitement. Tom, the reporters want to hear your side of the story. This is perfect. You can set the record straight and show what kind of man you really are. Ashley, Sarah warned, this isn't a publicity opportunity. Everything's a publicity opportunity if you handle it right. Through the window, I watched Janet pacing in front of the cameras, like a caged animal. She'd always been jealous of Ellen, jealous of our marriage, our children, our quiet happiness. When Ellen died, Janet had tried to claim that Ellen had been my victim, that I'd somehow trapped her in a life she didn't want. The truth was simpler and harder to explain. Ellen and I had been partners in the truest sense. She'd known about the business growth, known we had more money than we spent. But she'd also known that happiness didn't require a bigger house or a fancier car. We'd lived the life we wanted, surrounded by people we loved, doing work that mattered. My phone rang, Dr. Hernandez from the Children's Hospital. Mr. Randolph, I'm so sorry to bother you, but we're getting calls from reporters asking about the donation. Some woman is claiming it should be returned to your late wife's estate. I wanted to assure you that we have no intention, Dr. Hernandez. The donation stands. Don't worry about the noise. Are you sure? Because if there's any question about the legitimacy, there's no question. The money was mine to give, and those kids need it more than anyone needs to settle old family grudges. After I hung up, the office was quiet except for Janet's voice still carrying from outside. Dad, Sarah said slowly, what if she's right? What if Mom would have wanted to know about the money? I thought about Ellen's last weeks, how she'd worried about leaving me alone, about whether I'd have enough to live on, how she'd made me promise to take care of myself, to not be too proud to ask the kids for help if I needed it. Your mother knew everything that mattered, I said. She knew I loved her. She knew we'd built something good together. The exact number in our bank account was just ... details. But Dad, Marcus pressed, if you told her about the wealth, she might have wanted to enjoy it differently. She might have worried about it, I interrupted. Worried about taxes and investments and whether we were being responsible stewards of that much money. Your mother liked her life simple and her conscience clear. Why would I complicate that? Ashley was typing frantically on her phone. The story's changing. Some news outlets are starting to question the donation. We need to get ahead of this before it spirals. Let it spiral, I said. Dad, reputation. My reputation will survive Janet Walsh's accusations. It survived worse. Through the window, I could see Janet pointing at our building again, this time with more animated gestures. A new reporter had arrived, and she was starting her story over from the beginning. She's not going to stop, Sarah said quietly. No, she's not. So what do we do? I stood up and walked to the coat rack in the corner of my office. My old work jacket hung there, stained with hydraulic fluid and worn thin at the elbows. I put it on, then grabbed my keys. We go home? Ashley looked panicked. Dad, you can't just leave. You need to defend yourself. Tell your side of the story. I don't have a side. I have a life, and I'm going back to it. Marcus stepped in front of the door. Dad, if you leave now, they'll think you're guilty. Think you're running away. Let them think what they want. But the business will be fine. It was fine before today. It'll be fine tomorrow. And the donation? Will save kids' lives, which is why I made it. I looked around my office one last time. Ellen's picture smiled at me from the desk, surrounded by the organized chaos of 40 years in business. Tomorrow, I'd come back and deal with the contracts and purchase orders and 100 small problems that kept America's factories running. Tonight, I was going home to my modest house with its small mortgage and practical furniture. Anyone who wants to come with me is welcome, I said. Anyone who wants to stay and manage my media presence can do that too. Sarah grabbed her coat immediately. Marcus hesitated for a moment, looking at Ashley, then followed his sister. Ashley remained by the window, phone in hand, watching Janet perform for the cameras. "This is a mistake," she called after us. "You're letting her control the narrative." I stopped at the door and looked back at my daughter-in-law, this woman who measured worth in marble countertops and social media likes, who'd spent 7 years embarrassed by my old truck and modest lifestyle. "Ashley, last night you wanted me to get rid of my truck because you were ashamed of how it looked. Today you want me to defend my marriage because you're afraid of how it looks. Tomorrow you'll want something else because you'll be worried about how that looks. That's not fair." Fair would have been you seeing value in me before you knew about the money. I walked through the warehouse with Sarah and Marcus following. Behind us, Ashley's heels clicked uncertainly on the concrete floor, torn between her media opportunities and her family obligations. Outside, the media circus continued. Janet was holding court near my truck, probably explaining how the dented vehicle was proof of my miserly nature. Reporters clustered around her like sharks sensing blood in the water. We walked past all of it without stopping. Past the cameras and the questions and Janet's accusations. Past the circus that my simple act of generosity had become. My truck started on the first try, engine purring like it was proud to be the center of attention. Sarah climbed into the passenger seat, while Marcus folded himself into the back, his long legs cramped in the small space. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I caught sight of Ashley in my rearview mirror. She was standing in the doorway of my building, still holding her phone, watching us drive away. "Think she'd follow?" Marcus asked. "Eventually," Sarah said. "When she realizes the reporters don't care about her without you there." We drove through the city in comfortable silence, past the factories and shops and small neighborhoods where real people lived real lives. The radio news was already covering the controversy surrounding the anonymous donor, but I turned it off. At home, I made coffee in my plain white mugs and we sat around my kitchen table, the same table where Ellen had balanced our books in the early years, where we'd helped the kids with homework, where I'd eaten 10,000 simple meals in grateful contentment. "Dad," Sarah said quietly, "I need to ask you something and I need you to tell me the truth. Always do. Did Mom really know about the money?" I thought about Ellen's last Christmas, how she'd insisted on making gifts instead of buying them, how she'd knitted scarves for everyone and baked cookies in tins she'd decorated herself, how she'd glowed with satisfaction when people praised her handiwork. "Your mother knew she was rich," I said. "Rich in family, rich in love, rich in the satisfaction of work well done. She didn't need a bigger number in a bank account to feel wealthy. But the actual money, she knew we were comfortable. She knew I was building something that would last. The specific details seemed less important than the life we were living." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I think I understand what? Why you kept the truck. Why you didn't defend yourself out there. Why you walked away from all that attention. Tell me, because none of it changes who you are. The money, the media, Janet's accusations, none of it touches what actually matters." I smiled at my son. "Took you long enough to figure that out." Outside, it was getting dark. Soon, the news crews would pack up and go home. Janet would check into a hotel and call her lawyers. Ashley would probably spend the evening managing her social media response to the day's drama. And I'd sit in my kitchen, in my modest house, surrounded by 40 years of memories and the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. Tomorrow, kids in the hospital would wake up in a world where their treatment was secure, where their futures were a little brighter because an old man with an embarrassing truck had decided to share his good fortune. That was the only story that mattered. The rest was just noise.